It's the start of a new year, and I'm sure a lot of you, like myself, are searching and comparing top 10 lists. This is actually one of my favorite moments of the year because I get to reflect and look back on some of my favorite films and see where they fit in my own personal film canon. The movies that really stuck with me. The ones that I know that I'm going to keep rewatching and sharing with people, like I'm doing right now. If you're a cinephile like myself, or just happen to stumble upon this video, I hope you can watch it and take some of these recommendations for yourself. And thankfully, I feel this year had a lot to offer. From big blockbusters, to lauded festival entries, to hidden indie gems. And also an above average amount of good horror movies came out in 2024, and I think that deserves its own list as well. Today, I want to tell you about the top 10 movies I loved in 2024 and why I feel they're so special. I won't go into spoiling the story or anything. I would like for anyone who watches this to be able to go in fresh to these movies and have the same enjoyment I did. Also, this list isn't in any specific order, except for the last two that are my absolute favorites. Whereas a lot of the films on our list have expensive shooting locations, effects, or big set pieces, Perfect Days finds itself on the opposite end of that spectrum. It's a slow and measured look at a man's day-to-day routine as he works as a public bathroom cleaner in Tokyo. Hirayama doesn't say much, and is usually on his own, so most of what we learn from him comes from the few interactions he has with his coworkers and family. And it's not like he's shy or anything. It really looks like a man that purposely avoids having to say anything or inserting himself in other people's lives. What makes him interesting is that although he lives his carefully structured life in simplicity, he doesn't fail to enjoy the moments when he's listening to music, or reading, or taking pictures of trees, or tending to his plants. From the beginning, you are drawn into his very slow-paced routine until you start seeing things that are disturbing his well-structured life and you start to realize that there is pain behind the reason for his lifestyle. Hirayama's effort for simplicity is a balance he's trying to maintain to remain in the present, a daily mechanism to release himself from the past. It's refreshing to see a quiet little film that reminds us to take the time to enjoy the little things, and that happiness might be something that requires a daily effort. Flow has a very simple premise. A cat survives a flood by joining other displaced animals. The film goes deeper into minimalism by having no dialogue other than animal sounds, and very detailed animations of their expressions to convey their emotions. Hearing such a description may make the film seem boring, but thankfully that's not the case. The lack of dialogue makes what we see on the screen all the more evocative. There is beauty in the landscapes, the realistic animal depictions, the quasi-fantastical elements, hope in the way the animals learn to coexist, but also a certain sadness that comes from seeing only vestiges of human civilization, hinting that this is a world where humanity has moved on, and nature perseveres without us. It makes us feel for those little critters and their unique idiosyncrasies, and fear for their survival amidst the changing world where we are not around to help those we've domesticated. It's not a heavy watch, but it will leave you with a bittersweet feeling that'll make your mind come back to it once it's over.
Rain, are you sure about this?
Only one way to find out.
Characters exploring a derelict space station, an eerie atmosphere, zero-gravity moments, trying not to die during encounters with alien creatures with the term morph in their name. You'd think I was talking about a survival horror game like Dead Space, but no, it's actually the latest entry into the Alien franchise. Alien Romulus does feel like a survival horror game in the best way possible, because the director, Fede Alvarez, takes Alien back to its haunted house in space roots. It's dark and claustrophobic, a perfect place for xenomorphs to lurk around and hunt. Our protagonists move on from one level to another and have to figure out ways to survive while using knowledge, weapons, and environmental hazards at their disposal, and of course, fight the boss at the end. Sure, there are conveniences, a questionable CG character choice, and a few leaps in logic, but those gripes were overshadowed by the building tension, the innovative kills, cacophonous action sequences, and also the relationship between the main characters, Rain and Andy. I like that they didn't feel like horror movie cannon fodder. You actually root for them to survive the movie throughout. I thoroughly enjoyed watching Alien Romulus in the theater, and once it was over, I felt like watching it again and rewatching all the other movies in the franchise. I really can't wait to see what comes next.
Signore. Signore. Stava sognando?
For a film about a grave robber, La Chimera has a very slow and dreamlike quality. The movie feels like it's in its own universe. It's detached from time and has a definite Fellini vibe, where magical realism exists and the fourth wall can be broken. Josh O'Connor plays Arthur, an Englishman that has a gift for finding lost artifacts. We meet him just as he's released from jail and reunites with his accomplices. There's no info dump or any big explanation of the plot. We gradually learn more and more about Arthur and the others as the story progresses. Ultimately, it's hard to categorize this film. It's an offbeat story, seemingly unfocused, and at times like a hazy memory. But I feel that's part of its appeal. It has some veiled criticism of the consequences of capitalism. I feel it was also about the things that are buried and our longing to find them again. It's an enchanting film that I really hope more and more people will talk about. Watching Dune Part 2 reminded me of how it felt like back when The Lord of the Rings first came out in theaters. It's impossible to fully adapt a novel of Dune's magnitude one-to-one, but I think Denis Villeneuve and his team did it justice. Once again, Greg Fraser makes a world that would seem bland feel so alive and inviting. And not to mention the scenes shot on thermal cameras to bring us the Black Sun look of Getty Prime. It really looks otherworldly. Yes, there are a few deviations from the source material, and an added emphasis on the morality of Paul's actions for those who didn't get that he's not the good guy. But I feel it works for the approach they took towards the adaptation. Dune Part 2 is what a blockbuster should strive to be. Gorgeous cinematography, big action set pieces, rousing character moments, a memorable soundtrack, and a story that leaves you wanting more.
What was your name again?
I'm Chris, but all my friends just call me Wang Wang.
What should I call you?
If you were to go back in time and observe your younger self, do you honestly think you'd like what you'd see? Talking to your crush, trying to impress your new friends, alienating your old friends, fighting with your parents, and all those awkward instances where you wished the earth would just swallow you up whole. Diddy captures all those moments in the summer of 13-year-old Chris's life as he tries to find out where he fits in. He's just a normal teenager. It's like a cross between the films Lady Bird and Boyhood. The main character can be impulsive, cringy, unlikable at times, but also endearing. And even if we might not share his exact life experiences, there's something very relatable about Chris's story. Another element that adds realism and depth is that it's set in 2008. The usage of early YouTube, Facebook, and MySpace isn't just for nostalgic references for anyone who grew up with those apps. It better illustrates the hardships Chris has to face as he's navigating technology and a burgeoning social media in addition to his own adolescence. It's a funny and charming coming-of-age story that might transport you back to your own childhood.
Everyone was dead. Father and everyone. The stench of their bodies was horrible. But I'd never been so happy.
In an interview, director Robert Eggers said that he wanted to depict a vampire the way it would have been depicted back in the day when people actually believed that such creatures existed and were afraid of them. And after watching Nosferatu, I believe that he succeeded. Eggers' love for the source material, precise filmmaking, and adherence to history brings us a twisted and dark fairy tale that fully embraces gothic horror. He didn't do it alone, of course. The actors really helped sell the fear of being in the presence of an ancient evil, as well as the suffering of being the object of said evil's obsession, and of course, the indifferent and single-mindedness of an undead predator. Eggers once again collaborates with cinematographer Jaron Blaschke, giving us beautifully ethereal and otherworldly shots that make us feel like they're images taken straight out of a storybook. At times, cold and dreary frames that look as if the light is being almost completely sucked from them. This movie is definitely not for everyone. It has a slow pace, disturbing imagery, and deals with sexual abuse, although at a distance. But if you've enjoyed Eggers' previous work or like Gothic literature, I really think you should check it out.
If you want to defeat Tedesco...
This is a conclave, Aldo. It's not a war.
It is a war. And you have to commit to a side.
Who knew that the behind the scenes of electing a new pope would be so captivating? I was sure that the movie would be good just by seeing the cast, but I was pleasantly surprised by how it kept me engaged and guessing what happens next until the end. The direction, the acting, the pacing, and the writing all work together to show us how something as sacred as electing the one who is supposed to be the representative of Christ on earth can be mired by greed, personal agendas, pettiness, and ambition. In addition to being a riveting thriller where most of the excitement comes from people just talking, it's also a beautifully shot film. The interplay of shadows, colors, and framing complement the artistic setting that is the Vatican. There might be some moments that could feel exaggerated, but I felt it just further served to make a point on the absurdity of the situation that the movie is trying to portray. If your knowledge of Catholicism is limited, you might find yourself Googling a few terms or expressions, but it's definitely worth a watch. I feel that everything from the substance was designed to get a visceral reaction out of us. We aren't meant to remain indifferent. The bright colors that are present in the set design or as part of the wardrobe, the very detailed sound design that can be like some unnerving ASMR, and of course the disturbing and disgusting imagery that feels like body horror taken straight out of The Fly or The Thing. Coralie Farja places us in a very heightened world that could serve as a parable. About what exactly? The perception of beauty and youth in the entertainment industry? The lengths at which famous people will go to in order to remain relevant? When a mutualistic relationship between older and younger actresses becomes parasitic? Or all of the above? Different people will have different interpretations, but the one thing I think we can all agree on is that Demi Moore gives one of her best performances ever. Her role was more physical than I expected, and she really gave it her all. If you decide to give this film a shot, I suggest you don't eat while watching it, and also prepare yourself mentally to see some weird shit, especially in the last 20 minutes.
Tell me it doesn't matter. Tell me it doesn't matter if I win tomorrow.
Luca Guadagnino has a very specific and almost voyeuristic way of showing intimacy on screen. For challengers, he does it in a very sexually charged, yet not graphic way, and out in the open. Tennis is a relationship. That's how Zendaya's character describes what happens on a court when two people face off. It can be beautiful, passionate, cruel, one-sided, ugly, and it's also what Challengers is about. It's what's on display during the whole runtime. Just like the crowd that's following every ball movement in the match between Art and Patrick, we follow the complex back and forth between their and Tashi's relationship through time. Luca Guadagnino immerses us into the love triangle with his stylistic camera choices. Trent Reznor's soundtrack is not only great on its own, but it also helps to elevate the stakes of what is happening on the screen. Watching Challengers on the big screen was a ride that ended up being our most enjoyable one of the year. I keep going back to it and dissecting the script because it does a great job of building stakes without you noticing. Every time we got a flashback and peeled back a narrative layer, it added to the weight of importance of the present action and changed the context of the character relationships. I think it's a must-watch for anyone learning screenwriting or simply looking for a thrill ride. So 2024 is over, but please let me know what movies are in your top 10. I really wanted to watch The Brutalist, but unfortunately it's not out here yet. Anyway, please let me know what you think down in the comments because we really like to see what other movies have impacted you guys during the year. Until next time.